What is up, guys? Welcome to the ThinkComputers weekly tech podcast. This is episode 251, and our podcast is brought to you by Amazon. If you go to thinkcomputers.org/Amazon and happen to purchase something, that gives a little kickback and, of course, keeps the podcast ongoing. With me is my co-host, Ryan. What's going on?
Fun. I'm excited to try a new drink tonight. We were just chatting before we got started, so I'm ready to podcast. I'm ready to game.
What drink do you have there?
This is, I assume it's like AHA, right? Like sparkling water with caffeine and electrolytes. This is the citrus plus green tea flavoring. Came in my HelloFresh box tonight, so we'll give it a shot.
I actually, my HelloFresh box, which we have talked about on this podcast, mine came with the same thing but a different flavor. So we'll have to compare after we do it. But welcome everybody to our live stream for our podcast. We already have people in the chat. LBOE says he's the first here. What do I win? I guess you do win. You win. I guess you win getting first. Your name on the screen. You get first. That's what you win. My buddy Corey is here. What's going on, Corey? Corey was just in Florida, which I'm so jealous because one, it's completely open, and two, it's warm there. It's cold here. Our snow has all melted, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just gone after a couple days.
Yeah, but it's been an interesting week. Some cool stuff's going on in the tech world, of course. But for everybody who is in the live stream, or everybody who's listening later too, if you want to follow along, we have our full show notes page that is listed in the description of the video or the audio or however you're watching it. You can follow along and see everything that we are going to be talking about this week. So I guess we'll start off with reviews. And
sure,
I took a look at. I can't talk, or I already can't talk. We're like not even a minute into the podcast.
Yeah, how long? Yeah, we're 3 minutes in.
We're at 3 minutes. I took a look at a new case from Phanteks. It is their Evolv Shift 2. Which of course is the second revision of their original Evolv, which came out in 2017. So it was time for an upgrade. And the Shift 2, I'm just gonna call it the Shift 2 because the Evolv just I don't know. But the Shift 2 was the actual Shift was one of the first cases that has this vertical ITX layout. This layout has become a lot popular the past couple of years, but Phanteks was one of the first to do it, and do it well, meaning that like it's not just some junky little thing put together. I'll go into the pictures of the actual case. Like the front panel and back panel is brushed aluminum, which not only looks nice but feels good and is like really high quality. You have tempered glass side panels on each side as well. So you do have all that.
Every time I see this lately, it just reminds me of the Corsair One.
Yeah, it looks very much like the Corsair One. Yeah. I would say the Corsair One is like a beefier system.
Sure.
But yeah, it's very much like the Corsair One. I would say the designers of the Corsair One took a lot from this. So it's a really cool looking case, and it's a very small case. Actually, if you guys can see, let me make myself really big and see if we can actually see it behind me. I don't think you can. No, it's out of the shot.
No.
But it is sitting behind me here. And what's great about these cases, it's like it basically turns your PC into a console, but it's a PC, so it's obviously better than a console. It's small. It takes up some, no space on your desk. It's just a very small build. and that just is great for looks. It's not so great for cooling, which we'll get into, but it just like looks so good. I mean, if you look at that, I mean, just having that sit on your desk. So here's my normal case back here. You can see how big it is. This is just so small. It takes up no space, which I really like. Internally, you have room for mini ITX motherboards, but full-size graphics cards and 2.9 slot graphics cards, I believe. So a lot of mini ITX cases, they're limited by on graphics cards, not on length as much, because a lot of people understand that the lengths of graphics cards, like 300 millimeters, usually is enough for most cards.
Yeah.
But on the actual width, or I guess you would call it height of the graphics card, thickness of the graphics cards, a lot of times, one, it's not mentioned at all in the specs. So then when you get it, you're like, my graphics card doesn't fit. Secondly, it's usually like strictly 2 slot. If it's not more than 2 slot, like that means you have to get a reference card, or like the gigabyte cards are strictly 2 slot. There's a few that are strictly 2 slot. This is 2.9 slot, which basically is pretty much every aftermarket card, except for like some of the EVGA cards are actually 3 slot, but that's mostly all aftermarket cards. When it comes to power supplies, this is SFX or SFXL. They actually added SFXL in this new revision because SFXL will give you higher wattage if you're going to run a pretty beefy system in here. You would want an SFXL. You have room for up to 4 hard drives in this thing, which is pretty impressive. You can actually fit a 120 millimeter radiator in here as well, and it's just a good overall looking system. One of my favorite things, which I'll show you, is the top of it. It actually, so it looks like this. You have your power buttons and things like that. But as you go in, it kind of just, you like press on it, and that's
cool.
It's a latch that opens up that gives you access. Like your motherboard would be here, and your graphics card would be here. It gives you access to all that, but it allows it to, like, I like things that stay connected to the case, because you put them somewhere, you end up losing them.
Lose it, yep.
Or it pops off when you're taking this to a lamp or something.
So then your cabling comes out that hole in the back there by the hinge. Is that right?
Yeah. Your cabling would come out there. So you have to route everything, which again it's easier than some of the other implementations that we've seen, where you have to like take off a panel to access this. You just have to push it up and kind of put your cable through the back here, and it's much easier than other implementations. Getting into the build itself, it was pretty easy. Obviously, they do have directions, and the directions are really good. Like there's I believe there's like color pictures, and like every step is like a step-by-step way to install it. You can see our power supply.
I mean, in a build like this, sometimes you have to put certain components in before others. Like in a regular size case, a lot of times you can just start whenever. But in these, where you may have to, put a power supply in before you put a bracket on, so that you can put your drives in. That's kind of like what I had with the
and what's really nice about
cases.
Their instructions is they tell you like, okay, make sure you route this. The only thing they didn't say, which they should have, so your graphics card, which they make it extremely easy to install. There's the bracket that your graphics card sits in can actually be fully removed.
That's nice.
So you can fully remove it from the case, which we did, and you install your graphics card, and then you put it back in like this. Once it's in there, our power connections are over here, and you really can't access them. So you want to make sure you connect your power connections before you fully put this back in. And the reason I say that is it's kind of hard to see with all these wires, but there's like a little thumb screw right here that attaches that bracket. And with all this cabling, and you can see our motherboard and everything, it's hard to really access, especially like if you're doing this by yourself. So you want to make sure that your PCI-Express power connections on your graphics card are connected before you install your motherboard. I had to redo it, and it was very annoying. And that was not in the instructions. As I said, motherboard support, mini ITX. You have to do like I did here, like kind of connect all your connections before you put it in, because they're going to be hard to access again once you get it in there. But again, follow the instructions, and everything is pretty easy going in. Didn't really run into that many issues. It is a tight fit, but it's a small case, so you expect that. You also have limitations on CPU coolers. I think I wrote it in the end here. I'm trying to find where it is. But there's definite limitations on your CPU cooler. So if you're going for an air cooled build, you cannot use the AMD Wraith Prism cooler. It's too tall. I think it's only 45 millimeters.
You said 85. Only
85.
install CPU coolers up to 85. Yep.
Yeah, 85. Sorry, not 45. 85, which is very, very small. That's why we use this low profile cooler from CryoRig in there. You're either going to have to do low profile or go the AIO route with it. But as you can see, like they provide this like cable cover. Most of the cable mess is down here, and I could have probably even cleaned it up even better. You do get an included fan. This is a 120 millimeter RGB fan. The RGB fan comes with a controller that connects to that top the top of the case, and you can switch the effects and the brightness with that controller, or it has 3-pin addressable connection that you can connect to your motherboard, so you can do it either way if you want. And like I said, it looked pretty good. Here's our graphics card fully installed. It looks really good, but with any small build, you can see, especially with tempered glass, is that the cooling is not going to be the best.
Not ideal. Huh?
And there's not many cases. I actually don't know of a case that has adequate cooling in this type of form factor. The NZXT H1 for the graphics card does not. It
looks like it's sitting pretty close to that glass panel as well in this.
Yeah,
is there much gap?
There's not much gap. There is a gap, but it's not significant. So you're gonna run into cooling issues. If you look at it, CPU temperature got really, really warm. So idle temperature 45 degrees. This is on a Ryzen 5 5600X. The load temperature was 85 degrees Celsius, which is pretty high for my liking. Graphics card 34 to 74, not horrible, but not great. But the noise levels are fine. There's no really issue with noise. But our CPU cooler was running like 70% of,
so not quiet by any means.
Yeah. But the thing is that you have to remember is the only ventilation is right here at the top, as you can see. And there's a little bit of ventilation on the sides, but it's not enough. And the way to get around that is that they have an air version. So there's a Evolv Shift 2, which comes with 2 glass panels, and there's an Evolv Shift Air. The Air will have 2 ventilated side panels that aren't glass, they're mesh. That will get around that. Now, I have to say that our GPU temperature is like pretty normal. Like I'll run a graphics card, and on full load, it will run around 70 degrees in an open air test bench. You know what I mean? So running at 74 in this super closing isn't bad. I think that if you want to get the glass version, get an AIO. So an AIO would work perfectly in here. There's room for 120 or maybe I think 140 millimeter AIO just for your CPU, and it goes down here, and then you would route it up to the top. Okay. I think that's that like if you want to do air cooling, go with the air version of the case. If you want to do liquid cooling, go with the you can go with the normal version of the glass. There's no other ways really around that, I would say. Now they do include the one fan, which is here. It would have been nice to actually see performance difference if they included another fan that would fit in the bottom of the case. So you'd actually really make use of this top here, this top ventilation that you do have. So that's kind of what it is. But I'm actually a fan of the price. The price of this is $100.
That's not bad at all, especially with aluminum panels
and glass side panels and how it looks. And 4 hard drives. You can actually fit a 3.5-inch hard drive in here.
And their build quality, right, like is usually pretty dang good. Phanteks is some of my favorite cases.
Yeah, like the hard drive trays are metal. They're not plastic. Like everything is metal in this. It's all good quality. So $100. I was actually really surprised. It's just the airflow. CPU cooler clearance is an issue. But again, if you want something small, you're gonna be limited to small coolers. But that's one of the cons that I said. Thermal performance is something you're gonna have to address if you're gonna be using this like as your main like gaming PC or something. Easiest way to initially go about it is do CPU cooler or do an AIO for your CPU, and the GPU should be okay. It's still going to run a little hot. Adding some more fans, you can do that. Of course, that adds the cost of everything. But for $100, I think it's a really good. It's a good price. You have again some airflow and stuff issues like that, but I do think it's one of the better ones out there. This vertical mini ITX form factor. The just like the NZXT H1, the riser cable is included in that price. Like that's because riser cables
that's usually like a premium. They're a lot more than you would think when you like go to buy them. You're like, wait a second, I thought these were like $15. No, they're usually 40.
Yeah. 40 so the riser cable comes included. That's how you get the graphics card on the opposite side. Like $100 is really, really good. And honestly, if they would have included a second fan, I would rather pay like $120. And if it really helped with the airflow, I'd rather pay $120. But I get like the $100, like the $99.99, like I get
less than $100.
Yeah, it's less than $100. So check out the review. Really, like I said, it's really cool. I should be doing a video on it soon, so definitely stay tuned for that as well. Cool. Looking at the comments, which I haven't looked at because I'm not a good live streamer.
Yep.
Corey says my computer, his is a mid and like to go smaller. Yeah, ITX. The thing with ITX is you're gonna have to probably buy all new parts. Like you're gonna need a new motherboard. That's mini ITX. For this case, you will need a SFX or SFXL power supply, not the one that you're currently using. So there are some things. And again, heat and airflow is an issue. So definitely kind of research that before you go that. And LBOE says, my current build is mid-tower as well, but I kind of want to go full ATX. Full ATX in a case I want to go 3080 or 37 would work with my current one. Yeah, I mean, full AT, like full towers are great. A lot of them are overkill. Almost like all mid towers should be more than if they're designed well. Cooling should be shouldn't be a problem at all. Corey also said that case doesn't have good airflow. Not the best, not the worst. I've seen
a mesh should be so much better.
Yeah, it would have been nice to get both in and test both, like test the mesh.
Or if they sent you like panels. You can swap, right?
The panel, yeah. Jim is in the house. Jim said, "Hey, friends, we will be on Jim's podcast next week, right?
17th.
Yeah, the 17th. We will be on Home Gadget Geeks, which is always a lot of fun. That's okay. I'm caught up. And then Old Man says, who's also one of our regulars, he said, I think the bottom chamber in my Thermaltake case is bigger. On my case, 20 inches. Yeah, it's likely is bigger. This is a very, very small case.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's talk about my second review. Which was it's like a less than $20 product, but I think it's very useful. And we talked about Paul reviewed one of these a while back, and this one is even more like basic, and it's I said today it's like the perfect stocking stuffer. It is the Sabrent NVMe M.2 to PCI-Express adapter. I know it's really long, but basically it's a little adapter card that allows you to install an M.2 drive in it, so you can add an extra M.2 drive to your system. As I always said, just like my system here is all NVMe drives because I want this
jammed. Yeah, you've got every M.2 slot full of storage, and now you can add more if you need.
Yeah, so like the best thing about NVMe storage is the speed. It just drives are so much faster. They're even so much faster than SATA-based drives. But motherboards only have 2, sometimes 3 slots available. So if you want to add an extra one, you can do it with this. Also, there's a lot of older motherboards that don't have NVMe storage or M.2 slots because they're older, but they do have PCI Express 3.0, which is like a lot of motherboards. So if you want to take advantage of M.2 storage, but you never had a slot, this will allow you to do that. So it's a super simple device. All it is just like this little card, this little
basic, yeah,
it's this little thing here that has a heatsink on it, which we'll talk about in a second. It's just
I'm glad
so
to see
basic.
a black PCB also.
Yeah, the black PCB is actually nice. And it's a simple device that basically you install your M.2 here. It supports up to 80 millimeters, but it also does the other 3 lower ones, which I think are like, was it 30, 42, and 60?
Yeah,
So
that's nice.
so depending on the size of your M.2, it won't do 110, but it will do up to 80. And you basically install your M.2 in here, close it back up, and you have an M.2 that you just installed in PCI-Express slot, and it will detect it as a normal hard drive, and you're good to go. And we installed a Lexar NM710 or NM700, so you can see how it just goes in this super simple device right here. And you
doesn't require power either, right?
It does not require power or anything. It's all powered by the slot, so you don't have to worry about power. They do include thermal tape, which I would advise using if you want better cooling. So that thermal tape goes on your drive, and then you close everything back up and install it just like that. And what's interesting when I talk about the heatsink, it's nice that it has the heatsink on it because it helps with overheating. This Lexar NM, I keep on saying 710 for some reason. This Lexar NM700 actually thermally throttles, and it gets very hot. When we actually did our initial review of it, the controller actually got up to 89 degrees Celsius, which is pretty much scary, I would say. Yeah, it's very, very warm. So in our testing, let's just take a look. So the thermal, I'll just talk about Crystal Disk Mark really quickly. Here is our results of the drive without the cooler. You can see 3500 read, 1600 write. If we go over, we drop a little bit in the read, which is interesting, but this is with the adapter. But our write goes up considerably, and you'll actually see why in our next test. So Ato Disc Benchmark, this is without the adapter. You can see here, we're going good, and then it drops.
Yep. Dips in there.
It dips, and the dip is because it's thermally throttling. So if we look over here, no real dip, we're maxing out the drive pretty much the whole way. So this is really good. And as I said, when we reviewed the NM700, the temperature of the drive got up to 89 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
Here,
is that in the test bench?
Yes.
Okay, so that's open air test bench.
Yes. Okay. So here, you can. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but our Lexar right here only got up to during our linear write test, which basically kills the drive.
Yeah.
It writes the entire drive. I did it about 35% through, but I mean our max temp that we got to was 60 degrees, which when we did it, when we initially reviewed the drive without anything, 5% into this test, it was at 89C, and the performance was just crapped out. So that just shows you that, one, if you have a drive that might thermally throttle, it's going to help with that as well. But beyond that, I think the biggest thing with this is just allows you to add extra M.2 storage. It's simple, it's easy, and it's cheap. I was actually really surprised. I was thinking like $24.99. Sometimes you see these around $30, but this one is super simple. It's $17.99.
I know. I think Jim was like, "Is it less than $20?" And I was like, "Yeah, $17.99." He's like, "I think I'm gonna have it before next week when we're on the show." So
yeah, it's super simple. Like especially so Jim doesn't have like the most up-to-date system, right? But it's likely if he has a PC, it does have a PCI-Express slot,
right?
And you can take advantage of those speeds without having to have like the latest motherboard or something like that. So it's one of those nice upgrades, and the drive can be you can boot to that drive as well. So for those, like, one of the best upgrades for anybody PC wise is faster storage. And we say going from like a normal hard drive to an SSD, but going from a normal hard drive to an NVMe SSD would be like day and night. And the fact that you can now do that for like a boot drive without having to have an actual M.2 slot on your computer is just awesome, I think.
So one thing you didn't mention, are there LEDs on the side, it looked like?
Yeah.
So is that like a capacity indicator or just like write activity?
Yes, write activity. Let me bring up the picture again.
I saw there was a couple of them, so I didn't know what the use case there was.
I'll use this one. Bring it up here. Yeah, so this is just like when you're writing to the drive, these will like turn on.
Okay.
Which is like, it's just like a basic thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it's super small, and like I said, it's not very big either. This is like half height. So somebody was talking about this earlier, that they were doing like a 1U build, and this will
these would be perfect.
Like a 1U server type thing where you can't install because we do see ones that are bigger, have bigger heat sinks, maybe support more than one drive.
Yep.
But this is just super small and super simple. So yeah,
cool.
Definitely check that out as well. And that moves us on to your project. So Ryan has been, we talked about it last week, but he has been working on a project for a good while now.
Yep.
When it comes to water cooling. And I don't know, do you have, are we sharing your screen, or do you want me to
I've got it up. Yeah. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we can add you.
I've got it pulled up over there.
We can add Ryan's video that I have to point out that, so I do all the video editing on most of the stuff here. But Ryan, he shot this whole video and edited this whole video himself, which is very impressive. And I was actually very, very impressed with how it came out. So
I learned to computer.
Yeah. So tell us all about your little project and everything like that.
Yeah. So as I kind of say in the video, right, like at ThinkComputers, we've looked at a lot of all-in-one coolers, especially in the last year and over the years in general, right? Like, but that's kind of the arena we've stayed in. I know a couple years ago, Derek did take a look at some custom liquid cooling loops as well. Did some write-ups and articles about that, but it had been a while. And I personally hadn't done a custom loop in, I don't know, 5-10 years probably. So we reached out to Alphacool. They were gracious enough to kind of partner up with us on this build and this article and video. And this is just kind of my process of getting the parts in, taking a look at them, tearing down the system, putting components in, and then a kind of a final look at it. It's not necessarily here's our performance results. That's kind of a installation and just overview of parts for the most part. And this will actually be torn down in, I don't know, a week or so, and be going into a whole new case. And we're actually going to do a hard tube build. So this build is soft tubing, but we're going to be doing a hard tube build as well. So I'll just kind of kick this video off. I'm not going to do any audio. Get to see my lovely face. But I've just got, some B-roll showing the box that showed up, and like Dave from Alphacool really hooked us up. This box was enormous when it showed up. I knew it was coming, but it was huge. And so full of parts, we have a 360 millimeter and a 240 millimeter radiator. We have the GPU block, the video card block, the pump, the reservoir. He threw in the hard tube bending kit there. So like when I get ready to do the hard tubing, I've got all the like tools to make good looking build or bends, like 45 degrees, 90 degrees. It's going to be awesome. So the Kosher Tech says that boy clean shaved. Yeah, that was a while ago. Not that this is like a beard by any means, but yes, I was a little more shaved for some of that. So yeah, I kind of go over all the components that we chose for the build. And I've got, links down in the description for all of those, as well as just kind of text at the bottom of each of these. Going over some of the fittings, we used multiple like 45 degree swivel adapters, 90 degrees, some extensions, all sorts of components just to, got an ad.
Gotta pay the bills.
Gotta pay those bills. Skip. Yeah. And yes, so we've got some RGB in there as well. The fans that we used in this are everything's Alphacool. So and all the RGB lighting on all the components. So we do a quick teardown. You know, I give a little information regarding like tearing down the cooler on your GPU on your video card. Like if you've never done it before, it can be a little intimidating. Thankfully, this wasn't like
I would be scared. Like that's the biggest thing. So like I'm again, like I've reviewed so many computer things, but like the idea of like taking the cooler off my GPU and like it's a little scary.
Yeah, so LBOE, what GPU was that? This is the EVGA 2070 Super XC Ultra Gaming, is what that was. And that uses a 2080 like Founders Edition water block. And I've got the part number in there if you're curious about that as well. So then, yeah, we just kind of go through, you know, putting all the components on, putting all the fittings into all the components. And then we end up with, whoops. Come on now. That, right? So that's what we ended up with on the build. So this is a series build with a little bit of parallel as well. So we have our reservoir that you know, kind of has our out port here that goes into the first radiator, comes out the radiator into the video card, and then that water flow actually splits between cooling the video card as well as the CPU, and then comes out the video card into our front radiator, and then that radiator exits and goes into the reservoir. So kind of a parallel and series mixed loop there. On that GPU water block, you couldn't mount that backplate on it. I actually didn't order the backplate, and I could probably put the EVGA backplate on it if I wanted, but it wouldn't sit like, I don't think 100% flush. So I just left it off.
We should get you one of them custom ones.
A custom, well, in the next build, it's going to be vertical, so you won't see it.
I was gonna say from what are those guys? V1 Tech. You ever see this?
Yeah.
V1 Tech.
Yeah. So in the next build, the GPU will be vertical, so you'll see more of the water block and everything, which I'm super excited for that as well. Yeah, man. Tipped up, not like straight up and down, but like tipped on its side.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, and then of course we got some, you know, filling up the loop, and then, you know, some glamour shots of the system on. Another ad, man. Got all these bills to pay, but no, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's nice and quiet. Everything runs pretty cool. I am excited to get it into the Inwin 925. That case definitely has better cooling than the 905 that I have. The 905 just isn't the best case for cooling.
Inwin typically
just aren't in general, right? But I know the 925 will be better, and we'll actually be moving to dual 360 millimeter radiators in that build. So nice. I think that one will help. So.
Well, I'm really like the way it turned out, the way the build turned out. It looks awesome. I'm very jealous, but at the same time,
you just don't have the guts to like tear your.
No, I do.
Apart, right?
It's like it's more of a time thing, especially if I'm like. Taking apart my main PC. It's people don't understand like doing this, like making a video like this, like like I mean your video was actually pretty long, it's like a 15-minute video, but like that 15-minute video was like what, like 60 hours plus more.
Oh, it was a lot, yeah. And like being someone that's newer to video editing, obviously like getting cuts and just like what are they called, like J transitions or J whatever, where you're like your audio doesn't match your video, and just like making things look nicer, and not just like a total heap of garbage and clips piled together, takes a lot of time, especially if you're new to it, right?
It's a difficult thing.
But it was fun. I had
I'm really honestly I'm really proud of you. Like when you showed me the video, I was like very impressed. I was like, holy shit.
This can be horrible, or this can be like
yeah, no, you did really good. So yeah, everybody go check it out. It's on our YouTube page. Check it out. It's
A cuts and L cuts, LBOE, thanks.
Yeah. It's worth, like I said, it's worth checking out. And if you're into water cooling, it's definitely worth checking out. As Ryan said, Alphacool hooked us up. Everything, all the water cooling components are from Alphacool, including the fans too, right?
Yeah, the fans, the RGB controller, everything, the coolant that's in there. On the next build, when I go hard tubing, right, like they sent the hard tubing, and I have a heat gun in the garage that I'm ready to bust out and get going there. So we'll have a video on that as well. I won't go over all the components again. I'll probably cover the different fittings, just because they are a little bit different than the compression fittings that you use for soft tubing. but yeah, I'll have a video for that as well. And I think that build will look even better than this one did. So super excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for that as well. So definitely, like I said, check it out, and we'll be patiently waiting for that next video. I'm excited. So it's gonna be very cool.
Sweet.
Talking about liquid cooling, we do have of course Case Mod Friday, and we have a it seems like the past like 3 or maybe 4 builds that we featured are like all blue, like blue themes. But I honestly
Sub-Zero one last time.
Yeah, but I honestly
right here.
like I can't get over this is like if you do this on your next build, like the frosted tubing is like one of my favorite things.
Sweet. Yeah.
Frosted tubing is like will get me every time because it's just so cool. This is the Frostbite build from Declassified Systems. We featured a bunch of his builds before. I don't know the specific case or if it's a custom case, but it's a very cool case. Very open. I'm sure like a glass panel goes there, but
it almost looks like an older Mac Pro, like flipped on its side, the way those like handles.
Yeah,
look, you know.
But it's like
I don't know what it is.
Actually, I think it's a test bench because these look like feet,
okay.
And it would sit this way, but he has it the other way, unless I'm looking at that wrong. But like the way it's just set, I can't read what that says down there. But in any case, it's a really cool build. Obviously Frostbite, like it lives up to that name because it's blue and white.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing we don't see a lot as much lately at all is the RAM cooling. Like you just don't see it. I don't know if it's just me or the builds that I'm looking at, but we really don't see RAM cooling, but this has RAM water cooling built in. And yeah, it has vertical graphics card. And yeah, I like it. It's different. It's cool. But yeah, like you see the way this is sitting because it's not really like made to sit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't like it at an angle like that.
Well, yeah, but that's because I think this is a test bench.
Okay. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but in any case, check it out. I'm the biggest fan of frosted tubing. Maybe if I learn to do frosted tubing, or you could can you buy the glass like that? Or
yeah, I think you can get the frosted stuff, but you can. I've seen people like sand it as well.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure you can get it frosted like that.
Yeah, Kosher says, how often does he have to change?
So yeah, I was just typing back. It depends on the fluid type. Like if you get something that's crystal clear, like it will change color pretty quickly, honestly. But if you like have a dye in there, so it's like a transparent coloring, you won't notice it as much. And then they also have like the fluids that you can't even see through that are different colors and have the swirl and everything in those.
Who makes
it really just kind of depends.
What is it? The Mayhems
makes the like wavy, sparkly type stuff.
Yeah.
Primo Chill makes some nice coolant as well.
Yeah. So, well, in any case, check out this build. The Declassified Systems did do a video on it. If you want to check that as well, it's all in the article. So go ahead and check that out. And we also today is technically, well, this will run till all the way to the end of the day tomorrow, but it's technically the last day to get your entry in for our Patriot holiday giveaway. We're giving away one of their Viper VPN 100 512 gigabyte NVMe solid state drives, as well as their Viper Steel 16 gigabyte 4400 megahertz DDR4 memory kit. Both really awesome products, super easy to enter. You can enter up to 14 different ways after you do your first entry, so you can get a ton of entries in, and you could win some awesome hardware. There's gonna be 2 winners. I explained this before. One person gets the memory, and the other person gets the SSD. I'll pick at random which one, who gets what. Yeah, 26 hours left. So get your entry in. Super easy to enter. We have contests running all the time, so definitely stay tuned for other ones. But yeah, get your entry in for that. And that brings us to news this week. And we'll first talk about which has been going on since they were launched, but Nvidia shortages. There's been short. I mean, you can't buy for normal MSRP. You can't buy Nvidia 30 series GPUs at all. During the credit some technology conference. I'm not going to try to say it. NVIDIA's CFO Colette Kress said that we do have supply constraints, and our supply constraints do expand past what we are seeing in terms of wafers and silicon. But yes, some constraints are in substrate and components. We continue to work during the quarter on our supply, and we believe the demand. I can't read or talk. We believe that demand will probably exceed supply in Q4 for overall gaming. So this makes you think, like, what else could be in short supply or demand? One, just the actual silicon itself. When these things are getting ramped up, it's a couple months in advance that the chips are being made, right? So if you didn't put like your orders for, just like 1 million chips, and your demand's way higher than that, you have
to. You gotta wait for someone else, right, to get done with theirs, so you can get more.
Yeah, so then you have to put in another order, which takes 2 months, 2.5 months to complete that order, or whatever you need to do. You have all of that. You have all of the other different components. GDDR6 is a big one, which we have another story on that. But there's definitely a lot of constraints. If Nvidia, I don't know how they didn't think that people would want these cards, or that there was going to be this massive demand. I don't know how they couldn't know that, or I just don't know. I just don't know how they didn't think there's gonna be this big of a demand. But in any case, I would say, rough estimate, February, March before you could get anything.
Get one easily, yeah.
Get one easily, where there's and that's if the stars align, I would say, put it that way. This stuff's gonna be so.
Yeah, they're gonna be like 6 months old by the time you can get one.
Yeah, that's just gonna be how it is.
I guess most people haven't been able to get one, so it's really not that feeling like you're getting one like halfway through its life cycle, or like you're missing out, because guess what? Nobody else is getting one either. So
yeah. Also, the AMD RX 6000 series, 6800 XT, 6900 XT, they're having supply issues as well. And the biggest thing is GDDR6. Micron is the only company that's making it.
Yep.
They can only make so much, and obviously that's what I said from the beginning. That's going to be one of the biggest supply constraints on these cards is GDDR6. It's especially GDDR6X, which is even more like not as common as GDDR6. I don't know why like SK Hynix isn't making GDDR6 yet, or 6X, yet. But it's obviously, if you can only get it from one company, and that company's having issues. And there was a story last week that the Micron plant shut down for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's going to like kill the demand. Like
I don't
understand.
An hour means like a year worth of pricing.
How is it that you're like the power goes out or something wherever this? I assume this is in China or somewhere.
Yeah.
How is it that like the power goes out for 1 hour, and like that messes up the whole like supply chain for the quarter? Like that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't buy it.
And again, it's from the companies who have already like been
accused of
been accused and convicted of like the price. What do they call that?
Price setting, like
price fixing of DRAM, anyways.
Yeah,
but it's wild to me when I saw that headline. We didn't post a story on it. I should have wrote a story on it. But just it shut down for an hour, and then now prices are going to be crazy for DRAM. Like what? I could see like being shut down for like a day, a week.
Well, they're like, what I was seeing like reasoning for it was they've gotten everything so precise and efficient, right? That as long as everything's running perfectly, like that's their maximum profit line, right? So if that screws up for even that hour, it just throws everything out of whack, which to me seems like, well, then that maybe isn't the best profit line if You know what I mean? Like running that thin of margins, and an hour of outage can screw you up that much. Maybe those processes and everything need to have some adjustments made so that that's not the case. But I mean, people buy the stuff and it has to go into products, so I guess they can continue doing it.
Yeah, it's just that was just crazy, a crazy headline. So I really hope that anybody's looking for either new AMD or Nvidia cards that you can get them, you can find them. If you can find them, just buy it. Like, even if like you got to put it on the credit card or whatever, just buy it, because you're not going to be able to get it. It's going to be one of those things where you're like, oh, let me see, let me check back in an hour, and then it's going to be gone. So if you can get it, get it. And I mean, on both sides, performance wise, you're going to be happy, especially if you're upgrading from something like 2 generations before. Big upgrade. So
absolutely.
Talking about another crazy story, probably one of the craziest tech stories we've heard in a while.
Yeah,
in a real while. Over $300,000 worth of MSI RTX 3090 graphics cards have been stolen from the factory. So this came out, this internal document, which you guys can read here, came out through MSI that said up to 40 containers with an estimated value of 2.2 million won. Is that how you say it? Won? Which is roughly 336,500 in US dollars, were stolen from MSI's factory in China. That would be 200, and it's RTX 3090s that were stolen. So 224 RTX 3090s were stolen. If based on MSRP,
pricing,
that's how much they would go for. That is crazy. Like, usually you hear about these big heists, or
right, not of video cards.
It's like diamonds and money,
right, or like if you're watching the first Fast and the Furious, like TVs and stuff, electronics, where they roll up in those black Civics and pull over. I saw a meme about that where they're stealing video cards.
Yeah,
Fast and the Furious style.
Like, the best, the original article from Ars Technica is so funny because it says they fell off a truck.
Fell off a truck, yeah.
It's like, that's so funny. They fell off a truck. Yeah, that's just nuts to me. Like, this
MSI just has had bad press the last year. I mean, they've had some issues. But, that sucks.
Horrible press. And on top of that, like, that's what this shortage has done, is to where, like, people are, I mean, you're going to
going to those levels to get,
I assume in China
hardware.
you're going to jail. But you think about it too, like a 3090 is what, 1,300?
More than that. That's 1,500.
Well, in any case, they're selling for almost double, like on eBay. So you're going to make some money off of it. And obviously you stole it, so you're not paying for it.
3090 is $1,500.
Yeah. So you're making probably double the 300. You're making like 700,000 off of it. So that's a pretty good score.
Seems all right.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see if they knew like the serials or something, and I don't know, or like the device IDs, so then they could find out when those cards went online and just like shut them off. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if that's just like me.
That's a little too Big Brother, man. I don't want. I
mean, each card, just like a MAC address, like each card has its own individual ID,
serial number, or whatever.
Yeah, you can turn it off. So yeah, in the chat, Kosher said, Cyberpunk any good, worth getting? I bought it. I haven't played it. I loaded it up, but I haven't played it yet. I have heard a lot of bugs, a lot of download issues. It's day one right now, so lots of issues probably. What does this said? Derek Moore said, "Hey, worst was CEO fell off their building." Yeah, that was this year, was it not? Yeah. I mean, they've had,
wasn't them that had the fire, or was that?
Yeah, there was them that had the fire, and it was them that were supposedly selling
Yep.
their own cards. Yeah, MSI's had a bad, yeah, scalping own product and live view and more. Yeah, Derek is right. But yeah, Cyberpunk. We have a story on Cyberpunk. We can skip to it if there's something else. Before that,
what Rocket Lake benchmarks?
Yeah. So Nvidia did share their PC benchmarks for Cyberpunk. So if you wanted to see, what you would get with certain cards and certain things, if you were thinking about getting Cyberpunk, they had the RTX 3090, all the new cards, so all the way down to the 3060 Ti at 1920 by 1080 and at 1440p, and we'll show you the performance that you would get. Basically using the NVIDIA DLSS, which I think you should use because you cannot tell the difference. But yeah, the Cyberpunk does support all the new NVIDIA features, which is nice. So if you had an older, or if you have a 20 series or a higher card, that is a lower end card, but still has those RT cores and those tensor cores, you can take advantage of these technologies to give you better performance. You can see the difference, like at 1440p, you can go, say, like on a 3060 Ti, you can go from 20.3 frames a second to 44.2 with DLSS, which is nice. So
Custer says he's laughing because they're showing us benchmarks of cards we can't get.
I know, right? Yeah. That is that's how the world works these days, which is kind of sad. Yep. But moving over to CPU stuff, Intel's upcoming still 14 nanometer flagship Core i9 11900K surfaced in a benchmark of Ashes of the Singularity. It scored 62.7 FPS at 1440p and 64.7 FPS at 1080p. Both are run at the highest quality presets. The 5950X from AMD is about 10% faster, but still not all that bad considering the 5950X is 16-core processor. I always say with these early, because we're not supposed to see this till at least early next year, maybe in a couple months. I would say with these early benchmarks, especially Ashes of the Singularity, which is very CPU focused, but it's not like a specific CPU benchmark, to take all these with a grain of salt. It is nice to see the benchmark because that means this hopefully it's not gonna get delayed, right? Yeah. Because we've seen that all too much, is that you don't hear anything that means that it's probably getting delayed or not coming out for a while. But it's nice to see, and I do expect, even though this is still in 14 nanometer, somehow Intel is going to push some more performance out of it. They have to make it at least semi-compatible with, or not compatible, semi-competitive with Ryzen 5000 series, right? Especially considering it's coming out after it.
After them, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So yeah. What do we have next? Talking about CPU stuff. This is really interesting to me, just for the fact that
you're an Apple guy.
No, I'm not an Apple guy. I mean, I'm an Apple phone guy. I don't think it would be very hard for me to buy an Apple. I might like a
PC or laptop or computer or laptop,
like a desktop or even a laptop. Maybe a laptop, because I'm not.
Man, I was working on one at work for somebody the other day, and it was like, I don't know how people do this.
Well, you're just not used to it. It's just
I know, I'm not used to it. It's just,
yeah. So, one of the biggest success stories for Apple this year was their M1 processor, basically faster than Intel, performs so much better than Intel counterparts. They make the chip so they can finely tune. Apple only has a handful of SKUs, and if they're using this processor in those SKUs, they can fine tune because they have control all the way down to the hardware in these what's it called? In all these parts, they have, or in all these laptops, they can they can optimize everything. That's why like a Mac that has like crappy specs compared to a PC will actually have a better user experience because it's all optimized. Which also essentially, like, people, like, you get a laptop, especially like not say like a non-PC person buys a laptop, they like after a year they're like, this thing's slow, it doesn't work, like, you know what I mean? But like a Mac will probably last, that same like non-computer person will last longer because it's harder for them to mess it up. And it's better optimized, as I was saying. So the M1's been this huge success, and they're it looks like Apple is going to be working on a 32 core chip for high-end Macs. So on their Mac Pros, iMac Pro, and even a higher end MacBook Pro, they could be working on this 32 core chip, which will essentially replace Intel on the desktop side as well, which of course they were using Intel chips there. And the biggest thing that I see with this is, one, we heard about Apple making their own chip. Everybody thought it was going to be crap. It was just going to be stupid. I even thought that. And then this M1 MacBook came out, and it was like super fast. It crushed Intel and everything. It used less power. It like everything. It's just awesome. So you see this 32 core, and it gets me interested. But then in the story, there's something else which is incredibly interesting to me. It says Apple is also stepping up efforts to develop its own high-end professional visualization GPU that can be used in an iMac Pro and Mac Pro workstations, which would replace the AMD Radeon Pro solutions found in the current generation of products. So could Apple come out with a GPU, which is one would probably be more focused on video editing and things like that, but a very good GPU at the same time? Because at least in the first generation, they proved they can do a CPU on their own that's better than the competition. They're ramping that up for, again, a 16 core and a 32 core chip. Now they're going to make their own GPU. So now they're making everything
in there, right?
They're making everything besides like the RAM. I mean, they're making everything in there. They can fully optimize it. I think this will possibly bring Apple back to when they were like they were the video editing king, and then they still are in a lot of respects.
Yeah,
but I just think.
Well, I mean, because for the longest time it was, if you wanted to do any of that multimedia creation stuff, you had to have an Apple, and then I think over the last 10 years or more, right, we've gotten to the place where you can pretty much do it on either or and have successful results. This might vault them back to, hey, if you really want the optimal experience, we've spent the time and money and research to create the video card that, interfaces, and is optimized for our hardware, and you end up with a better result. So,
and
that's possible.
They can fully optimize it. Whereas like, when you're rendering out a video on like a Mac, it would take like a minute, whereas like on a PC it would take like 15 minutes or something. Like, you could see that type of optimization that they could do. So that's really exciting. Not that I would buy a Mac, and you have to think, if they're making the CPU, the GPU, everything, and I mean, you saw like how expensive the cheese grater Mac was. It was like $30,000.
Oh, you want a $2,000 monitor stand and $700 wheels for that computer?
It's not going to be cheap, but it's great to see that one of the big reasons, and there's been a ton of stories on this, why Apple moved away from Intel in the first place was the security problems that they never, like, Intel took so long to fix. That was one of the big reasons. So they don't have to deal with any of that. They can do everything internally. Secondly, of course, was the optimization. They can fully optimize down to the silicon, which is good. But yeah, I think that's cool to me. When you see a new player come in like that and just be like, yep, we're doing it ourselves, and they actually do a good job, it's, even though it's Apple stuff that we don't typically use, I think it's really cool. So yeah, that is very exciting. Talking about something that's very exciting that we saw, at least I saw. I don't know did you see this at CES too, or were you not there with me when we saw this?
It was just you and I at CES this year.
No, I know, but what I mean is, Okay, I guess you did see this, but anyways,
I
yeah,
took
you
the
were.
pictures of it.
Yeah. I forget now. That's how long it seems like. It's been a year, right? Almost.
Yeah.
CES, but we saw this at CES. The Razer Tomahawk. It's up for pre-order now. It's very expensive, but it is super cool because it uses Intel's, what is that called? Like the DG1 or whatever that thing was called. It's the Intel NUC element. That's what it uses. So it's like this little. It basically looks like a little motherboard that has everything on it.
Yep.
Basically, your CPU, everything's, and it goes in this kind of system here that looks. It's about the size of
like an eGPU.
Yeah, it's like an eGPU, but it's a full PC, which is really really cool. And Razer built a chassis for it and all of that, and it's super super small. It is really.
It's coming with an i9 9900 series card, right? A 9980.
Yes.
Not a 10.
Yeah, I think it's because that Intel element at least only supports that. I don't know. If you go to, I think it's probably, they're probably sold out now. Yeah, out of stock.
$2,400 though.
It starts at $2,400. Let me see if they do. But you can see how like they do show with a 30 series card.
Yeah, you can get it with a 80 for $3,200.
But you see this little like it's with this element thing. So you have like this little board down here that connects everything, and then you have this card, which is essentially your CPU, SFX power supply, storage, and it is a cool little way to do small form factor. The cost is just a little high.
It's too much.
Yeah. If they could bring the cost down somehow, but it is Razer. You have the Razer tax that that you have to pay for. And I think this starting has a 30 series GPU. I don't know which one. 3080. Well, that's still really expensive.
No, 30. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the 3080. If you want it with the 3080, it's $3,200. Without a GPU, it's $2,400.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Just to go that small form factor is not worth it. When you can build, like we just showed you with the Evolv Shift 2, you know. So yeah. What do we got here? What do we got? We did the Nvidia story about the Cyberpunk. And then your game, World of Warcraft. Yeah, this Ryan's a huge World of Warcraft. So World of Warcraft Shadowlands becomes the fastest selling PC game of all time. It came out November 23rd. Is that what you got?
Shadowlands? Yeah, it's the latest expansion.
Yeah, the latest expansion. It said the first day of launch, more than 3.7 million units had been sold globally. So that makes it the fastest selling PC game of all time. Now, I heard some people complaining about this headline because they said it was initially supposed to be out and people pre-order or something. I don't know.
I think, well, and the way it was worded, and I've read it a couple ways, and whether this is just being misquoted or translated, because I think in our article we say that sold more than 3.5 million copies as of its first day of release, right? It's not that it sold that many on the first day, it's that like when it was released, that's how many it had sold.
Gotcha.
So I think it's just kind of gets lost in some of the...
I think that will probably be beaten by Cyberpunk. I'm guessing.
You think so?
Everybody I know has it or has gotten it. I know people.
-1.
Well, yeah, I know people that have took off work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we shall see. But good for WoW. I haven't played WoW in such a long time. I know you still play it. So. So yeah. Talking about what we have coming up next week. I have the Corsair Iq Nexus, which is a cool little companion device that either can connect to your keyboard or it can just be used as a standalone unit. I actually have it sitting right in front of me using a standalone unit. It has a little screen on it. It's a touch screen. It will allow you to one, interact with all of your Corsair devices. So if you have a Corsair cooler or Corsair RGB fans, it will show. Let me see. No, it's showing me as I scrolled.
The
Oh, there
more
we
I
go.
look at this thing, it is kind of cool. Like because I always have IQ running on my screen above me, so like to see some of those stats right there, pretty nice. And if you could like switch between like fan profiles for in IQ, I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah, I haven't got
via buttons. I don't know,
but yeah, you can change the fan profiles. You can change your RGB modes, so you
Mhm.
can see like this is this little display. This is like what would be shown on the display. You can see your temperatures in real time, voltages. You can add a bunch of stuff to it. You can actually fully customize it too. So, they don't provide you like customization tools, but if you can use like Photoshop or video, or you can make like little icons like this and do all this stuff pretty easily. But it's a nice little thing. And again, if you're in the Corsair ecosystem, it's like you can see all the different things that you can do. You can do shortcuts, like I can put a ThinkComputers logo on it, and then if I press it, it goes to like the website. You can do a bunch of stuff. So I'll have that for you guys next week. And then I will also have a NVMe SSD. I love our super fast storage. This is the Kingston KC2500. This features their 96 layer TLC NAND. It is a Gen 3, so it's 3,500 megabytes a second read and 2,900 megabytes a second write. Yeah, so I'll have that for you guys as well. So some cool stuff coming next week too. Old Man said Logitech had something like that built into a keyboard. Yeah, Logitech did. There's a couple other companies that did. I think this implementation, I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to ruin the review for next week, but it's pretty good. It's still not the best that I've seen. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe version 2 will have some improvements if they make a version 2. Who knows? But
yeah, it would only goes on Corsair keyboards, which again makes sense. But it would have been nice to go on some other keyboards as well. But anyways, we'll talk about that next week. So yeah, that brings us to the end here. We talk about have you done anything cool? I know you, like I said, you edited your video and did all that, but if you watched anything, did anything?
No, just keeping up on Mandalorian. So it's been pretty good.
I had not watched past episode 2. I need to do that.
Yeah, they're not bad. No, I mean we played a little Apex over the weekend, right? I think we enjoyed the winter.
We're gonna be playing that tonight. I'm actually really excited. I feel I have a really good strat for it now, so I'm pretty excited.
It worked pretty well, I think, for us over the weekend.
Yeah.
Played a little bit, but
so Apex Legends has a new winter mode. It's called Winter Express. They did it last year too. It's more of like an action fighting mode than the actual real game. So it's a nice break from the real game. It's a lot of fun. So we'll be playing that over on Twitch, twitch.tv/ThinkComputers. So check that out. I've been working on reviews, and I did get that motorized slider. Were we talking about that last week?
I don't remember. I know you told me you got it. I think you had it, and we mentioned it a little bit last week.
Yeah,
did you set it up yet?
I set it up to do some test shots, but I had to buy because it sits on the tripod and it moves slightly as you get to the end.
The weight.
So I bought. You can use it on light stands. So I bought 2 more light stands, and I will be setting it up probably this week because I have to shoot B-roll for a video. So I'm really excited for the motorized slider. So definitely stay tuned for that. This is like non-tech related, but I started watching the show Yellowstone. It's on. So if you have like Comcast gives you like that streaming box that gives you like it's called Peacock. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like a streaming service. It's on there. That's like what I've been watching it on. It has the main character is Kevin Costner, and it's like really good, like really, really good. And I haven't watched a show that I actually really like that in a long time. So if you have Peacock, it's on there. Check it out. But beyond that, that is basically it. Shinny is in the chat. So we'll be playing with him again over on twitch.tv/ThinkComputers. But we will go ahead and end things here. We definitely want to say thanks to everybody for hanging out with us for a little hour of tech chat. And we'll be here next week. Also, next week we will be on Home Gadget Geeks. We'll have the links for that. We'll post all that out to social media, but we'll be on there on Thursday, so you can hang out with us next Wednesday as well as next Thursday.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. 8 Central.
Yeah. So definitely stay tuned for all of that, guys, and we'll go ahead and we'll see you next week.